thank you for joining us and accepting it. Really interesting what you have to say. I'm looking to do at least 2 rounds where I take a question and then pose it to everybody, and then do another round on that, on the questioning. That's the logistics of all this. So with Greg, your company is based on communicating over the phone. So I'm very curious to hear how you've been talking to the troops and going forward.
Yeah, well, the first thing I try to do is not be a know-it-all. To say it sort of negative, but to say that there is some unknown out there and to show that from the CEO level. I've also really tried to focus on the fact that everybody listens to the same radio station, WII-FM, what's in it for me, and to strive to really take time with as many of our associates and talk to them, staying on message, you know, being disciplined. And I've done 2 things that I thought that are pretty fun. I send out a weekly 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 communication, and I've put some extra color into that and some introduce some cameos like this Zoom bombing, you know, where we've got a senator from our state of North Carolina that's joining us. We've got Derek Wittenberg, a famous basketball player, that's going to spend 5 minutes with us. So I'm trying to every single weekly meeting to have somebody else come in and talk to them to sort of break the ice and know that we're all in this and kind of worried, but you know, to be able to take a break and do some other things.
Thanks, Greg. I'm going to go to Tom and then Clara, then Susan. So Tom, you're a sales thought leader. I know you've got a new book coming out today on what's going on. You went quick to the market on that. What's your message on communicating?
You know, it vigorously agrees with Bryan's and it vigorously disagrees with Bryan's. And so we're going to have an opportunity to discuss that. We're spending a lot of time. The book came out. It's called How to Sell in Place. A couple of things around what's happening right now. Access is becoming challenging. How to get to and leverage that CEO access is a little bit more difficult than it's been in the past because, of course, just as Bill said, you've got to get to your current customers and see if you can, first of all, solve their problems and help them figure out what you can do, and then grow their business because they're desperate to see if they can't grow their business. If you could be one of those people that steps in with a solution, and I think that's one of the things that Bryan was talking about as well, is you've got to step in and help them at that CEO level. They're sitting there saying, help me. I'd like to grow my business. So I think the issue of accessibility, second point that has to be made is to get that accessibility, you have to bring something to the table that solves just their problem and a now. This is the time compression point. It is inside of the next 60 days, which is as far out in their future as they trust. They only trust the next 60 days. It doesn't mean they don't have problems that are longer than 60 days, but they can make a decision that fits for the next 60 days. They can see a problem for the next 60 days. And inside of that time compression issue, you're going to be able to reach out and talk to them. The accessibility issue is in the future, not just now, but through that cycle of the recession. They're not going to want to see you as much because of their own issues, meaning your buyers would like to keep you at distance for their own reasons. And a lot of them include the fact that they've got people working from outside the office. Secondly, of course, they're concerned about their own people's health, safety. Your company wants to decrease its expense in reaching the people, and it's found out in the course of the last 60 days that they can be, as Bill was saying, still as effective, still as supportive, and yet not have to get on the road to do so. So they decrease the expense on both sides of the equation. That time compression is very, very real. We talk about all those things inside of the how to sell in place model. Part of that is that Bill's company is selling in place right now. He's just not calling up and saying, hey, you know, how do we just serve you with where you are right now? He says, hey, how do we serve you and serve you in a more important way to solve this new set of problems? I think that's what the great thing is as far as being helpful. You know, as Greg said, we're all in this together. When you're all in this together, you want to reach one hand out to get helped and another hand out to help. And for doing that, You have to have both of those messages in hand. And I do think that the people who've spoken so far would agree with me on that core idea. Helping other people out in some cases is to sell or facilitate through supply chain management or through thought leadership, just getting them moving because they're stuck in place rather than, in my case, selling in place. So I think all of these things that are happening, I can't help it. Everybody who's on this session right here is positive thinkers. There's no one on here who is desperately saying to themselves, well, nothing can be done. I guess we're just done. Everybody here is a thought leader and positive. And by the way, if you're on this right now, you should nod up and down just to indicate to people that are going to be seeing this that in fact you believe this and you're a positive person. So that's the case. We all believe that there's a way to work our ways out of this and that there's a way to think our ways out of this. And I want to hear what the other folks have to say, but I'm not excited about the pandemic. I'm not, there's people that are dying out there. There's people that are suffering that are out there. And our customers have those things. They want help. They want us to care. They want us to call and express that we care. And then they want us to help them. We have an ethical responsibility to do that. And when we do those things, they are going to move forward. And will they buy more? Will new people buy more? It's what Bryan said. They'll buy more if they have different problems than they had before. They'll take the meeting if you're bringing in a new issue or a new solution. So I think we can help a lot of people with our good work. And that's why I'm on here to say, I agree with what was said earlier. A lot of people talk about a lot of things that are going on out there and the jobs that are lost and a lot of negativity that's out there. People need to believe that things can get better and that they have some control over how they're going to make it better.
Thank you, Tom. Clara is going to be up next. Yes, we are the 15% who are going to solve the problems for the 100% and employ the 85%. So thanks for that positivity. Clara, and then Susan, and then Lisa.
Sure. So great points so far. I think it depends on what business you're in, right? B2B, B2C, digital, retail, et cetera. Hearsay Systems is an enterprise SaaS company, and we have a really unique position right now. We are in the business of mobile and digital engagement. So it's actually been a really important time, and I've seen our company really develop an unprecedented sense of purpose over the last 60 days. So what we do is we provide text messaging and social media tools for companies, a lot of banks and insurance companies with distributed relationship managers. And so if you think about what's happening, it's really providing human touch at digital scale, right? That human client experience. And, before we were talking about this over 5-year transformation time horizons, talking about using digital to help insurance companies with client acquisition and retention. Now it's about using digital with that human touch to reach out and proactively reassure clients that their portfolios will be okay, that even though the bank branch is closed, they're still open for business, and this is how you can access your funds and stay up to date on the economic outlook. And so there's examples of this where we've had a pilot going with TD Ameritrade for years, and then this happens, they close all of their branches, and instantly they're rolling out our solution to every single advisor they have in the country. And it's just interesting, right? As a software company, we always used to kind of joke, or we would say we're not curing cancer, but in the last 60 days, our customers have told us that we've saved lives because we've allowed bankers and insurance agents, these essential businesses, to be able to close and actually perform their work from home, which is something that we never would have expected. And it just makes digital shift quickly from a nice to have instantly to a must have.
Thank you very much. I'm curious about, is that a Zoom background behind you? Is that your office? What is behind you?
It's a Zoom background.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd gone to the empty office to do this.
It
probably
looks
at home
so
like
cool.
the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does
I
look
know,
great.
I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, how do I get one of those? So
I was thinking, I remember when I used to go to people's offices and interview them, the good old days. Okay, thank you. We're going to go Susan, Lisa, and then Scott, please. So Susan, take it away.
Well, thanks so much, Henry. And Clara, to your point, I love what you said about the human touch through digital. So I think one of the most important stories is the question that we start our days with as CEOs is, what is the story I'm telling myself today? And in times of uncertainty, it's not that COVID is the extreme of what we all lived through in 08, 09 with a recession and SARS. I'm originally from Canada, so SARS had a bigger impact there. So we must be in a place where we're taking something from going, it's possible, to it's probable. So at RadiusAI, we have human-centric artificial intelligence, and we had algorithms that we weren't going to deploy until 2021, 2022 for mass detection, hand sanitization, compliance, fever detection. And when this began in January, we said as a team, if we can help, we must help, we will help. And my first piece of advice to anyone watching and listening is that if you have the ability to do something, you have to take that leap of faith, and it isn't easy. So right now, during this entire time, I have employees, I have investors to be accountable to, and customers to be accountable to. And we were originally in the retail sector, and so we had to explain to our investors why we were suddenly verticalizing in the healthcare space. And as glamorous as that sounds, because we are about to deploy a kiosk that will essentially do fever detection, mass detection, hand sanitization, and social distancing nudging, made in America. And it sounds all well and good, but I started my day today with, supply chain issues, and can we procure that? And not all cameras that detect fever are the same. Most of them just do body temperature. So Lisa and I are here in Phoenix. If it's 120 degrees out, it's going to say you're warm. And most of those detection systems, you need 20 to 30 minutes in air conditioning before they can accurately read. The camera we use does pinpoint analysis between the eyes. It's a $20,000 device. So to make a long story short, the story I tell myself every morning, building a startup, doing a fundraise, deploying a new product, ascending a new vertical, is that, again, if I can help, I must help, I should help. And I want, my heart goes out to anyone watching and listening who is not navigating this well. And my advice to you, if you're struggling and uncertain, and Netflix and Merlot and your duvet look a lot more appealing than suiting up, I would just say, listen to this again. I'm not just here teaching, but I'm also taking notes, and listen to it as many times, watch it as many times as you need to get your head on straight. Because the point that was just made by Henry, which I took note of, that the 15% are going to help the 100%, we're looking at possibly navigating this for the next 2 years, but then there's going to be a flu season. There are going to be other challenges we have. It's time for us all to step up to a whole new level. And in order for us to do things we've never done, we have to become people we've never been.
Susan, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And make me say, wow. You made me say, wow. We're going to go to Lisa and Scott and then Clara. Lisa, take us away.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Susan was saying, that we absolutely have to show up in a very different way. My niece and nephew like to say it's thinking outside the triangle. What my agency is focusing on is our audience. We're actually not focusing on our story, but on the story of our customer, our client, our prospect. What are their current needs? What do they need not only right now, but as Tom was saying, 30 to 60 days into the future? But really, we're focusing more on the right now, because that's the immediate need, and how we can support our clients and our prospects during that time. As a full service digital consulting agency, you can imagine a lot of things have shifted. We've seen some work that's completely stopped, and in other ways we've completely ramped up. for other clients who are desperate for assistance, and there's been a shift in that. But everything has been centered around how can we educate, how can we share, and how can we show up. And one of the things that we're doing to show up is we're actually trying to be still, be quiet, and listen to what's happening with our audience and our prospects. Instead of running in and trying to talk about our story, we really want to focus on our audience and make our story and our needs second to that. And that's been a big shift, especially for me. Anyone who's heard me speak, I'm a big talker. And to actually just be quiet for a minute and really be present with the audience and really focus on their needs has been our biggest shift to date. You're muted, Henry. You're still muted, Henry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
By the time this is
you.
over, I'm going to have a PhD in Zoom. I'll tell you.
Remember,
I was enjoying that. Why'd you let him know that?
I don't know
dying
about anybody
here.
else. Yeah, I don't know about anybody else. But
And just being quiet.
yeah, in this pandemic, technology has only served me. I've never had any Zoom problems. Everything else is wonderful. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
100%.
Technology is still my Achilles heel. I had a new mic and I was all set to use it, and then I couldn't hear you. And I'm like, damn it.
Yes, yesterday during the Zoom call, somebody said, "You look like a helicopter pilot." Yeah, we're getting critiqued all the time. Scott and I have been, I don't know, soul brothers and working on big projects for over a decade here, and I was really glad you could join us. So we're going to go Scott, Clara, and then Feyzi. Scott, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Great to see everybody, hear everybody. These are terrific comments. I'm going to just say everything we've heard so far has been extremely insightful. So I don't want to duplicate anything, but as you know, my background is taken at University of California, Irvine. We're based at Applied Innovation. I'm not there today, but we have been looking at this two ways. One is we have a strategy practice called NextWorks that works with the mid to large cap enterprises. And of course, the Executive Next Practice Institute that you see here has several thousand members across the world where we look at emerging trends. So I just got to tell you, we looked at this pandemic scenario 4 years ago. Did we know it would look like this? No. No one predicted it would take on this scope, scale, and depth. So the issue now is, I'll just cut to the chase of what our folks are saying, is two things. One is there's a lot of talk out there about black swan, white swan, and how you define it doesn't matter. But the fact is we've known about pandemics, so they're in fact a white swan. The black swan for all of us is how we're reacting to it. It's how we're being reacted to. It's how the guidelines are being set up, the ambiguity that's out there in the marketplace. So it's a bit like going on vacation, staying at a friend's house. You wake up in the middle of the night, it's pitch black, you only seen the house once, and you're stumbling your way to their kitchen. We're just we think we know where we're going, but we're just, bumping into things. So I would say this, there are a couple of things the enterprise companies, our CEOs are saying, and we're looking at from our standpoint, running our company. One, burn rate. Burn rate is right in front of us. The cash is going out the door. So naturally, that's something we're looking at. Number two, looking at some scenarios, both long-term to the degree we can, but mainly taking care of the block and tackling right today. What are some things we can test and move forward on? Cultural transformation. We start off talking about the cultural transformation. You will get engaging people in a way that they feel more connected and can be contributing. And then finally, building the agility across our workforce. So with that in mind, when we talk about communications, and I'll keep this short, the communications have got to be authentic. How many of you got an email from hundreds of companies you haven't heard from in years that said, we're here for you? It says almost they took a template email and said, just patch our name onto this nice email. So we've got to quickly transition into something, and many of you have already said this, we've got to transition into an outcome-based communication. That is, what's in it for those employees, what's in it for other stakeholders like our board members, our community, our customers, our suppliers, and communicate from a standpoint of their outcome. Here's the other thing also, keeping it real. People don't need to be reminded about how terrible this is. Keep it real to their own situation, how it's impacting them personally, and how they can move forward with it. So our communications have had much more of a personal touch, both within the company, but also with our customer community. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we move forward. The authenticity will show through. It's also showing leaders that are not capable of managing in this kind of remote environment. Those kind of skill sets are really showing up. Either they have them or they don't. So that's, keep an eye on your leaders, of course, particularly your middle management in terms of how they are communicating with their people. And then finally, as you're communicating, watch your bias. We had Tom Rieger, who wrote the book Fear Barrier. He's out of Gallup, and he talked about the 4 different types of biases. I won't go into all of them here, but the bottom line was our personal biases are driving a lot of bad decisions right now. We are thinking in a linear way about how this is going to unfold, and it's not going to be a linear process. It's all intertwined. So we have to watch not only our own industry, but other industries and how they impact us. So that's kind of a wrap up, but again, it comes down to this micromanaging the communications right now that's so critical. Great.
Thank you, Scott.
You, Henry.
Thanks for being here. It's going to be Clara, Feyzi, and then Heidi. Clara, you'll have to indulge me. I want to get the fanboy thing out of the way. Huge fan. For those who don't know, you're in the B2C business, and you've already done 2 product placements by drinking Hint Lemon a couple of times. I think that's what you're drawing on. A couple of years ago, my doctor told me I had already consumed my lifetime supply of Diet Coke, and I need to let other people have Diet Coke now, and I had to find something else, and I love your product. So I was very excited to have you here today, and now I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Well, so I think that the first thing is we're maybe in a little bit different situation than some of the other folks here. I think different in that we're an essential product. And so what that means is that, you know, we have a responsibility that to these retailers to actually be there in terms of stocking shelves and, you know, and making sure that our supply chain doesn't break down at all. And when other supply chains are breaking down, that we're popping in and you know, really helping to fill those holes. So we knew, you know, on March 13th, I go back, you know, to Friday the 13th, and I truly knew that something was really hitting then when the auto replenishment systems in a lot of stores, grocery stores that we supply to, were breaking down, and we weren't actually getting replenished, you know, based off of cash register data. So we have a pretty big relationship with Target, and, you know, as well as Kroger and Publix and lots of other, we're nationwide and lots of those stores. So that weekend, I mean, it was really all hands on deck with our team across the US. We have a few hundred people who are salespeople, and we were all jumping in and seeing the exact same thing. So we decided early on that, you know, while we have, you know, customers like you guys who are buying the product, we also have customers like the stores that were, you know, really seeing something that they didn't know how to deal with. And so we started sending trucks of Hint into a lot of those stores, and actually, in some cases, even bypassing distributors just in order to just solve the problem until they ultimately could, you know, figure out how the electronic ordering systems could catch up. So, so that was kind of, you know, the weekend of March 14th, and my memory of it. Then we had shut down our New York office that weekend as well, when we really saw kind of, the effects of our team. We're based in San Francisco, but we have a office, not that big of an office, but 20 people in the New York office. And I think New York for us was a little bit different situation in that everybody was taking public transportation to work, and really were a little freaked out as compared to, the other offices where maybe they were driving. So we shut down that office. And at that point, the other offices were kind of curious, well, why are they able to work from home and we're not able to work from home? And by that Monday, it was really, really necessary for us to start to communicate kind of what we were seeing, including, as an essential product, everybody would still be working, right? We're not just like going home and, trying to do what we can on the computer. It was really, we were going to visit stores still, and, still continuing to do our job, at least the people who were doing, store level jobs. But we were also starting to hear and predicted that other offices throughout the US would close pretty quickly. We have 3 revenue streams for our company in terms of how we sell. So we're selling into retailers. We have a pretty significant direct-to-consumer business, and then we also sell into offices like the micro kitchens that are out there. And so we really, predicted a worst-case scenario for the offices on that March 14th weekend, saying, what if all the offices in the US close down for the next 3 to 4 months? That's a significant piece of our revenue stream. But in addition to that, we have a lot of people that will be affected that are supposed to be calling on those people. So on Monday morning, we reallocated all of those people into, retail sales functions. We also shut down all of our events people who go out to events and do sampling, because we said, it's going to be really difficult to actually hand people a bottle or a, cup in a store or an event, even if these events are going on. Like, we don't want to risk the safety of our employees. And so we were super early in making that clear to everybody. I think that the key thing that we were articulating that week was just that safety for our employees was the number one, issue. We only had a couple of people who were living with like elderly people or who had some sort of chronic illness that actually couldn't be reallocated. But I think, again, because we were so early and kind of, even before any of the offices were really shutting down in other companies, I feel like because we were ahead and sort of making these predictions, I think the staff just was like, really grateful. We haven't furloughed or laid off anybody in the company, which is, been great. And basically the direct-to-consumer business, which was about 40% of our overall business, that week as well, we went out to our customer base and told them there is, a lot of hoarding going on in stores right now. People are a little frantic about supplies, and we went out to our customer base and said, there's no reason to go out and stock up on products. We have plenty online. If you want us to deliver to your door, which is what we already do, we're here. Like, there's not going to be any interruption in that. And so that business is now about 60% of our overall business. Just in the last 60 days, it has, truly been, over 100% growth for just, based on those last 60 days. So it's been pretty crazy. I think that the last piece of our business is that has been really, really interesting to watch is that we've always believed that sourcing in the US, somebody mentioned this before about the Made in America, we've always believed that that was really important primarily because of quality, and more than anything, but also the getting the quality, but also just the predictability of, even if it was a little bit more expensive. So we have 8 different plants throughout the US, and we're distributing as close to those plants as possible. We invested a few years ago in making sure that our plants didn't have people on the line when we blow our own bottles. We actually fill the bottle in a clean room with no people in the room at all. So, and our goal has always been, as much as we can automate so that there are no people involved, then the risk is a lot less. So because we're a water company, water is not typically monitored by the FDA, which is crazy on a lot of levels, but because we use fruit, we're considered a food company. And so we are monitored by the FDA. So when the FDA was going in and looking at the plants and seeing that we don't have people, when the water and the fruit and everything is actually going into the bottle, they were like, thumbs up, let's keep going. Unlike what we're seeing right now with a lot of food manufacturing plants that have not invested in that. So, I mean, that was something where, again, we've always believed that that was really the right thing to do, but I cannot be more thrilled with my team and sort of how we've thought about this, and the fact that, safety is not only there for our employees, but also, for our customers. And so that's really what Hint has been in the last 60 days. I can't say that I've slowed down at all. It's been insanity. I've personally also, just one last thing, jumped in as a salesperson in Marin County. So I think the team's seeing me out actually visiting, a couple of stores in the area, just to, make sure that it's safe, and, and that I can help in any way. I think has been really, really nice and critical to see the executive team, do things that maybe they don't typically do, but just to really show them that I'm here and I'm supportive, and we're showing up.
Yeah. Thank you, Clara. I had spent some time working for Marriott, and once a year we would go into the field and be shoulder to shoulder. You're doing it daily, so thanks for that. And thanks for no letter from you that said you appreciated me and you were going to wash your hands better and clean things better in the future. I don't know why everybody sent me those letters. Okay, well, let's go to the world of tech, Silicon Valley and Southern California, and Feyzi. What's your take on this?
First of all, what a pleasure to be among such esteemed colleagues. My heart goes out to everyone who's suffering there financially, health-wise, but also emotionally. There's a lot of suffering that is taking place. From my perspective as a CEO, number one job is to inspire and energize. In fact, people have heard me saying CEO stands for Chief Energy Officer, to energize the company as the main asset that we have to deal with everything else, to have that positive mojo, that great mind, mood, and mojo within the company, set the tone. And as a good friend of mine, Brad Callahan, mentioned to me a few days ago, he's looking at his business that is 100% shut. He's in travel business. He looks at his business from 2 lenses, from a microscope and from a telescope. And while he's managing the day-to-day disaster that is taking place economically and personally, he's also investing every single day in reinventing his business, moving forward. And so that was very refreshing to hear. From my perspective, I have a framework of when, as CEOs, we communicate We focus on what we communicate, but also we focus on how we communicate. From what to communicate, my focus is to revive, to renew, and to refresh the purpose, the goal, the mission, to revive it in the minds and the hearts of everyone in the company, the why they're here. And our why in the world of technology, inspired by Steve Jobs many years ago, is to democratize SaaS. SaaS, software as a service, as a foundation of digital transformation, giving people access to healthcare, to telemedicine, to education, to economic freedom, is to democratize it in a sense. People, my friends, call it Operation Liberation, liberating software for the first time and make it available to everyone in the world. The work that Salesforce.com did to create their wonderful software as a service took 5 years, $123 million. We do it in 2 hours. And we make it available to everyone, including the open source solutions. There are thousands of them out there, but they're unused, untapped. And not only the software would be accessed by millions, but also it creates entrepreneurial opportunities for young people who graduate from college to take an open source solution with Corent, make it SaaS and go to market without any physical presence necessary. So the vision, the purpose, the mission is something that resonates with the current times, both from giving access to the users, but also creating opportunities for the doers. And that is as far as what is being communicated. As far as how it's being communicated, I'm trained by my dear and phenomenal friend, Peter Bregman, who wrote the recent book, Leading with Emotional Courage. And his point is that you got to communicate, his last Harvard Business Review article, lead with empathy. Let people know you care. As Bill Campbell, the master coach in Silicon Valley, and the book, The $1 Trillion Coach, says, even if you care, employees don't get it. You have to let them know that you care. You have to communicate that caring. People don't care unless they know you care. So basically, that is some of the frameworks I'm using. But most importantly, I'm using this period to self-develop and become more grounded, more centered, and more anchored myself. Because as another good friend, Mark Thompson at Stanford said, you cannot scale your business any faster than you can scale yourself.
Thank you, Feyzi. Thank you so much. Heidi, thanks for being with us. And you've got a retail perspective and some other things going on. So please share.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little background on ThirdLove. ThirdLove is a direct-to-consumer bra and underwear company. And so I think the biggest thing that's come through in terms of our company is that our values of why I started ThirdLove and why we exist are incredibly powerful even today in the what I call the post-COVID world. And so, you know, our values are really around convenience, right? Letting a woman be able to easily buy a bra online, comfortable products that fit really well, and then being a really authentic brand that welcomes women into our community and also gives back. So even before this crisis, we are the largest donor of bras and underwear in the country. We've donated over $30 million worth of product to women in need. And so as I took a step back, and March was incredibly difficult and in many, many ways, as it was for all of us just trying to get our bearings, once I went through that process of grieving and anger and stress, we really came together as a company to say what we're doing can help today, both women and the community. And so let's make sure we continue to focus on what we control and how we can impact women everywhere. And as we've seen lately, and there's been a ton this week, women are bearing the brunt of this. In fact, I was just saying to myself in my head, God, I hope my little kids don't come in here right now and barge into this really loudly. And so that is a lot of things that are on the top of my head, are how do we engage with those women who are feeling the same way that I am, which is, you know, definitely a little bit stressed out. And so as a company, what we've said is two things. One, how do we continue to communicate what we do really effectively to our teammate base, which is 85% women? And then how do we do that to our external base of customers and potential customers? So I think one big focus for us has been really meeting the customer where she is. So keeping tabs on organic conversations, mostly through Instagram and social platforms, has been really, really helpful because it tells you what people care about. So the idea of being comfortable, so for a while it was this idea of being braless at home. And we actually played and messaged into that, which is anti what we do every day, which is sell bras. But like, if women don't want to wear bras for a few weeks, like, we're going to talk about that. If people aren't doing laundry, you know, we can talk about that. And that kind of morphed into a conversation more about being comfortable and wireless and kind of styles. And so I think for us, it's really about where's our customer and how can we support her through social and engage and make her laugh and make her cry and just be there for her. We are a partner to our customer. And so I think that's really important, that authenticity, being on the pulse of the customer and meeting her where she is. And then lastly, going back to what I said originally, one of our values of giving back, we really said, what can we do as a company? You know, we're not Google, we can't donate, you know, tens of millions of dollars, but we can do something. We can do something to help our community. And so we joined an innovation coalition donating elastics, which we use on our bras, that can be used to sew masks. So that's been very exciting. We've donated over 1,000 bras and underwear to nurses and doctors on the front lines. And that's been amazing and really, really engaged our community of ThirdLove customers, but also as well has really, really engaged and motivated our team. And so I think that's what's really important here, is that connection between your external and your internal, because in essence, I think what I've heard from all of us is what is motivating externally is actually motivating internally. And we can't forget to keep communicating that to our team. So that's my feedback.
Great feedback. Thank you, Heidi. I'm going to just do a quick round here. And everybody, less than 30 seconds, but if you could just share something you got from somebody else on this call. I'm going to start it off. I run a lemonade stand of a company. I've got 30 people. I need to communicate more with those 30 people, and I need to communicate the caring more to them. Sometimes I'm just communicating the business things. I think we need to do the other thing. So Scott, do you want to jump on? And then Clara, what do you have a takeaway?
Just 30 seconds. I use Jerry Steinfeld used to have a routine, and Jerry's routine was, when we're on a trip, we can't wait to get there. When we're there on the trip, we can't wait to get home. If we stand up, we can't wait to sit back down. We're creatures of habit. We are always seek a place of comfort, So in our communications then, what we've been doing with our clients and customers and our thousands of enterprise leaders is, what is their comfort zone? What do they need to hear? How can we support them? What is it that will help them see through this, at least to the next step? Keep in mind, we're day-to-day right now. We're not looking at next year. We're day-to-day with everyone. So what is that comfort zone? What is that trip? When can they sit down that will make them feel comfortable?
Clara?
Unmute.
Yeah. Clara?
So I love the comment of looking at this with a telescope, but also paying attention, or another way of saying it, paying attention to the microscope, right? Because I think we're all doing that in our own way, and waking up every morning and really trying to move forward based on, you know, the day and the information that we're getting. So I think that that's critical no matter what industry you're in.
Thanks. How about Tom and then Bill?
Name and impact. Everywhere you are, when you're talking to one of the people that work for you or on a group, you want to give a name of you specifically, whether it's an employee or a customer, anybody, your name, the person you're talking to, company or whatever, and what impact are you having internally and externally on the community. People want to know that they matter, and not generally, boy, we're just very grateful for what everybody is doing. I don't hear my name in that. I don't resonate with that. But when you say my name as a company or a person and you tell me what I'm doing, I need that. It's like oxygen right now.
Thank you. How about Bill and then Bryan?
I have a ton of notes. I don't know if it's being eaten by Fillmore, but my book is eaten. It's Fillmore. That's apropos. I have a new acronym, WIIFM. Love that acronym. Thank you, by the way. And I think if I could echo Scott's sentiments, so important today is this is not a linear process. It's fluid, and we need to be extremely clear and micromanage the message, because ambiguity kills. Ambiguity is always found against the drafter. It's found against the speaker. And I am assiduous in my application of this is what we intend. This is what we're saying. What did you hear? 3 things I ask on every Zoom of every one of my coworkers, not employees, is accountability, accessibility, and responsiveness. And I have so much that I'm going to take this stuff and probably borrow most of it. Thank you.
R&D, rob and duplicate. Yeah. How about Bryan and then Greg?
Oh yeah, following on there a bunch. Scott, you got a couple of them here. I love the white versus the black swan. That changed the way I've been looking at this, and I think you're right. How we react to it is what really, even with a known black swan, you don't know the reaction to that black swan. So I like that reframing of that. The Seinfeld bit was really good too, by the way. The Heidi, you mentioned the idea of working from home, and it got me thinking about the last 60 days. I've met more kids and more pets, and it makes us go back to saying going to the office, putting on a suit was like armor for battle. And I look at this as a real humanizing environment that we're in, that I hope we never go back to getting dressed up to go to the office, because I think that puts the facade up. So I really like this, the humanity of what we're going through here and us being in this together. So those are probably the 2. I love the microscope, telescope, spot on with that. And I think that when it comes to our own people, what I did is I asked our own team, whether you're in sales or not, to understand our elevator pitch, because your elevator pitch is going to be about your true why. I think this is that real purpose. And an elevator pitch is not a shtick. It's not how can I get you to buy something. It's why we exist, and making sure everyone really understands that. Because if I can get them to buy into the why we're doing what we're doing for people, from a leadership perspective, it helps them think better about the work they do, but also see our clients as those we serve. And our job is not done until they're actually successful with the work that we do. And I know that seems obvious, but I think that gets away from people, and hopefully we recapture that spirit within the organization.
Thanks, Bryan. Was it Greg and then Lisa?
Start with a commercial. I wrote a book. And I went through 4 editors before I could find somebody that could do my voice, and it was Henry. Henry did a terrific job on that. I've got a ton of notes too, Bill. I really do. I love watch your bias. I wrote a principle down the other day that says hindsight is not 20/20, because you have a bias and those types of things. You see it through a different lens. I'm appreciative of what everybody has said. I want to share that we went through paralysis when this first happened, analysis paralysis, or blame, or those 5 levels of depression before you get to acceptance. And now our company is lucky. We are wide open because we're in the call center business. So we're doing hotlines and unemployment claims and all the bad things about it. But it got me going with a lot of the initiatives, strategic initiatives that we have. So we're upgrading our payroll system, redesigning our HRIS system, amping up social media. So the group is busy. We're beyond that. We've gotten to that acceptance stage, and I appreciate what everybody said today. And I've got a ton of notes too, so thank you.
Thanks, Greg. How about Lisa and then Heidi?
First of all, everyone on this Zoom call, if you haven't written a book, you need to. And Heidi said it, there is such power in your story, and your story matters. So that's first and foremost. Everyone here has an amazing, Henry calls it a mess to success. I call it your creation moment. One moment you weren't thinking about a company, and in the next moment you were. And there's such power in that moment. I wish everyone would capture that, because that can touch, move, and inspire everyone around you. So that's first and foremost. I think that if you can show up and then shut up, I think that is also really key in getting your digital communication out. And if you have been hedging, getting some skin into the digital game, now is the time. There's no better time than now. You can take a risk. Nothing is certain. Everything, as far as I'm concerned, is on the table. So go out there and do it. Test things. Get beyond your comfort zone. If you get beyond your comfort zone, you can inspire others to do the same. And everyone's uncomfortable right now, and that is okay.
Thank you. How about Heidi and then Feyzi?
Yeah, so Feyzi was who I was going to talk about. What I loved is this idea of chief energy officer. Super interesting. I've never heard that before. I love it. And I totally echo and your point about the how, because the what is super important, but the what doesn't matter if the how's not right. And so one of the things that I focused a lot on is how I'm communicating and what that looks like. And especially we use Hangout all the time, but really making sure when you're online with your team, when you're doing your all hands, really trying to engage and figuring out how to do that effectively. It's not easy, but that really resonated with me. I think it's all about the delivery and how you do it. And I think that's so important in the CEO role. So thank you. And there's tons of, I got echo, lots of notes, lots of great things. Thank you.
Thanks. Feyzi and then Susan and then Clara.
Yeah, Alan Mulally, former CEO of Boeing and Ford, once said, as CEOs, we don't own our own faces. So whatever the way we show up, whatever we exude through our faces, the mood, the mojo, the mindset, that he said it would impact the stock of the company. So for us, it impacts the tone, the mood, the energy in the company. So we got to be mindful of how we show up. The other point is make sure we see other people and allow them to see us. In order to ensure I abide by that, I'm making a habit of every communication with employees, with customers, I talk about something non-business that has to do with their humanity, with who they are as a person, not simply as an instrument of business. And that allows me to see them and share something about myself, non-business related, whether it's about a dog, about the family, about the gardener, whatever it is, to show my humanity to them, to allow them to see me. So that's all I'm going to share.
Thanks. Susan and Clara, we have less than a minute, but I want to hear from you.
Thanks so much. I took pages of notes as well, and one of my big takeaways, Feyzi, was from you. I love what you said. You can't scale your business faster than you can scale yourself. And the thing I'd like to leave everyone with is I have 5 kids. I have one sitting beside me right now doing her online school. I have a son with autism. It's messy. There are days when I have shorts on the bottom, a business top, whatever. I love, Heidi, that you're giving back. I'm so ordering a lounge set from you afterwards, like Clara suggested. Stop freaking apologizing for your life. As CEOs, there is a new world for us where people are expecting us to be raw, real, and relatable, and just allow yourself to show up authentically messy, especially to women. If it's a top-knot day, if it's not perfect, get over it. Just be yourself. And that's what I want to say. The very last thing is, one of the things that I suggest we all contemplate is how can we serve at a greater level? When this started, I no longer practice, but I I started doing free live coaching for small business owners, restaurant owners, chiropractors, people who are navigating this and just showing up every Friday for whoever wants to show up, and figure out ways, creative ways in which you can serve at a bigger level, even if you're exhausted, because you're going to learn a lot and it's going to help grow your business inadvertently. So that's what I want to say.
Thanks.
And I'll close with it's humanity with at digital scale, right? Digital without humanity is not authentic. Humanity without digital is not possible because we all have to be apart right now. I would close out Bryan's 3 C's with the 3 C's that I live by, my team lives by right now, which is courage, commitment, and compassion. We got to be visible and we have to be vulnerable.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you. I know how priceless an hour of a CEO's time is. I pledge that I'm going to share these important messages today, and it's like a seed you planted today, and I want to spread the crop. Thank you. So thank you, everybody, and we'll be in touch, and have a great day.
Thanks, Henry.
Thanks, everyone.